Retell me
I
not
thought I was
has
about to get just a regular YouTube ad. Oh.
Little happy dance.
God damn it. Hey guys. Okay, today we'll be watching Yasuke, Story of the African Samurai in Japan. You guys have been recommending Kings and Generals a lot. I know. I've seen it. I have seen the comments, don't worry. But as I've said before, this is from... I've said this long ago, so obviously... probably a lot of you have not seen the video because it's an older video. I don't think it got too many views anyways. So I'm just gonna repeat it here. I don't really... I like watching battle videos. You know, the videos that Kings and Generals typically do. Whatever the right grammar there is. But those videos are typically harder for me to comment on because I'm not a military historian. I understand some things, but I also, it's like when I watch a field battle or, well, one of these animated battle videos, to me it's like kind of me putting in my modern perspective with the hindsight of the battle and be like, oh no, he should have done this. Because I feel like that's about the only commentary I'd be able to really provide. Doesn't feel like it does much to, you know, broaden the conversation or the discussion around that topic. I think I'm kind of making sense. I don't know. I'm a little weird with battle videos because it feels like, to me, it just feels like I can't really talk too much on battle videos because, yeah, I don't know. I just, to me, they feel like they're harder for me to comment on. But on stories such as Yasuke here, you know, I'm being told a story. I like stories. Story time is great. So I feel like I can comment more, react better to story times. But I'll definitely be looking more into other videos from Kings and Generals. I do love their channel. I do think they make excellent content, and I love them for it. But yeah, just for me, in my personal opinion, I feel like I can't comment substantially enough to really warrant a reaction from most of their videos, but I'll definitely be looking into more of their videos to see if I can provide some more sustenance to said video and give it a proper reaction. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling and we're gonna go ahead and watch the story of Yasuke. Ooh, that's loud. Whoops.
the sponsor of this video. Retell me
I
not
thought I was
has
about to get just a regular YouTube ad. Oh.
Little happy dance.
God damn it.
an exclusive giveaway for our viewers at the end of the video. The Sengoku Jidai, the warring states of feudal Japan.
Sengoku Jidai. Shogun 2. Total War Shogun 2. Oh, man. I love Japanese history. I just want to say that, too, before I forget to say it. Japanese history, to me, honestly, if I had not fallen in love with European medieval times, or, well, late 800s Wessex, I honestly probably would be studying Sengoku Jidai time period, because my background is I took Japanese martial art as a kid, and then I also took it in high school for a bit. And, you know, being exposed to that as a kid, that gives you kind of a love for that culture, right? So, you know, I fell in love with Japanese culture from a young age. Well, Japanese culture and history. So yeah, Japanese history will always have a special place in my heart.
This era evokes many romantic images of great castles, spectacular battles, and stoic samurai, adorned in their elegant kimonos and top-knotted hair, wielding their iconic katanas.
They have some great fashion sense. Impeccable.
What if we told...
I mean, look at the armor, man. I'm pausing so much. I know that's gonna piss someone off. But I just Japanese armors. Yeah, plate armor is cool. It can be fashionable. It can look badass. You like it. You look like a tank. But samurai Japanese armor just has a style to it that looks imposing, but is also elegant at the same time, in my opinion.
Told you that among the ranks of this ancient warrior order was a black man from East Africa. This is the tale of Yasuke, the first man from outside Japan to don the dual katanas and the only African to do so.
Okay, yeah. I was about to say, and he was the only African samurai, right? Yeah, I believe, I can't remember what nation, but I believe a European man would also become a samurai at some point.
To begin the tale of the African samurai,
I can't remember if American
we must
also
first
did.
establish the context. In the early 15th century, the Portuguese Empire had a scattering of trade outposts across the Asian Pacific. In the year 1543, they reached southern Japan. The Japanese relied heavily on the import of silk from Ming China,
this is such
and as
great
the
animation.
relations between the two states were icy, and trade between the two was forbidden by the Ming Emperor, the Portuguese established a niche trade by buying silks in China and bringing them to Japan. These European merchants grew very rich as intermediaries between the two Asian heavyweights. The Portuguese were allowed to build a trading port at Nagasaki, which quickly became a large hub for commerce. And where the Europeans went, their priests would soon follow. The Catholic Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits, established a significant presence in southern Japan. Their mission was to convert all Japan to Christianity, spearheaded by priests like Francis Xavier. At the height of their influence, several daimyo lords and over 200,000 Japanese were Christian, mostly in the Kyushu region. Of course, the Portuguese and their Jesuit compatriots were spreading their influence on other continents as well. By the 1500s, they had established a foothold in Africa, in what is now Mozambique. Here they became enthusiastic participants in the local slave trade, acquiring many poor souls from the local chiefs, who they would in turn ship out for labor across their maritime empire. That a dark-skinned man from Africa became a samurai in feudal Japan is considered a fact. However, we know very little about him. Details on his country of origin, early life, and even his original name are muddy at best. We know only the name given to him by the Japanese, Yasuke. The story we've chosen to depict here is our personal interpretation of the few pieces of information we have about.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is one of the very important things when it comes to telling stories. So, for those that are big fans of studying history or even are taking classes maybe at the university level, what you will hear is the term microhistory, which is typically obviously in the name micro, so it's very a small look into a history. Typically, it's about an individual or a certain region. It's become a very popular form of history in recent times. I believe it's probably I'm going to say it's probably the most popular form of historical writing today, as it also typically allows for the best sales for an author, because it allows the author then to tell a story, and obviously storytelling is very well liked by the public. A couple of books that I can say off the top of my head would be like The Return of Martin Guerre. That's an older book and typically is seen as the book that led to the breakout, I guess, of microhistory. Personally, I'm not a fan of the book. The writing style isn't my style that I like to read when it comes to storytelling, but it's a great piece of the amount of research that went into said book is great. Anyways, Yasuke. Them, and another thing you'd find in microhistories is like, so I'm taking the bits of information here that we were able to research, and then also doing a bunch of outside research on similar instances like this, or on the culture So in order to do microhistory properly and in the best way possible, you have to do a lot of research. You have to have a great understanding of the culture so that you can then make educated guesses as to what would happen, right? For instance, like how Yasuke would become a foreign samurai. How this would happen is, well, you would then look at the other instances that may have been recorded in greater detail and look at those instances, say, of like, I guess, the one I'm thinking of, as I mentioned earlier, the European man that possibly became a samurai. I can't remember if he was European or not. But anyways, there have been other instances where a foreign man has become a Japanese samurai. You take a look at those instances and you see what information is similar between the two stories that you know, and then you take the information in one story that is known, but the information that is unknown in the other story, and see if you can apply it to that time period. So it really takes a huge understanding. So, yeah. My brief definition of microhistory, brief, even though you could definitely talk longer on microhistory. Anyways, I'm gonna shut up.
About his life. We have only theories for the origins of this mysterious man. Some say he was born around the year 1555 in Mozambique, which at the time was being colonized by the Portuguese. He was most likely of the Makua peoples, a Bantu tribe, although some claim that he was from Ethiopia and belonged to the Habshi people. Either way, the saga of this East African man began in his childhood, where he was most likely enslaved and given to the local Jesuits. He was taught the Christian religion and the Catholic lifestyle, and brought up to believe in the proselytizing ways of the Jesuit order. After some time, Yasuke was given to the Jesuit inspector Alessandro Valignano. Valignano's mission was to audit Jesuit activity in Japan, so he sailed east with his servants and slaves in tow. Thus, in the year 1579, the as yet unnamed man of East Africa first set foot on Japanese soil, behind the coattails of his Jesuit master. It is here we should briefly explain the Japan that he stepped into. The Warring States period, known as the Sengoku Jidai, was nearing its climax. Japan had been divided into many independent little fiefdoms in 1467. By 1579, however, most of these fiefdoms had been conquered by the ambitious daimyo Oda Nobunaga of the Oda clan and his vassal Toyotomi Hideyoshi. In 1581, Valignano brought his African servant into Kyoto, the beating heart of Japanese civilization and seat of Oda Nobunaga. The Bantu man had likely never seen a metropolis of such.
So I just want to add, though, they were. It's really hard to really define the Sengoku Jidai period. So in a way, yes, they were pretty much autonomous, independent states that were throughout all of Japan. And those independent states would be run by daimyos. And eventually, slowly, Japan would become kind of more unified under one single state. The Oda Nobunaga being one of these prevalent characters in this movement. Well, they weren't necessarily independent. They still were technically under the emperor. However, the emperor's powers were exceptionally weak. He had pretty much no influence over the daimyos. The daimyos held pretty much all of the power in Japan, and so it can be argued that maybe the emperor really wasn't an emperor, but also he was still called the Emperor of Japan. But yeah, it's a weird time period. If anyone knows more about the Sengoku Jidai period, please go ahead and correct me for anything that I say wrong. Because like I said, I'm an avid fan of Japanese history, but since it's not my field, it's not necessarily the one I will be reading the most about in my free time, right? So, yeah.
Size and bustle, nor had the people of Kyoto ever seen anyone like him. When rumors spread of a giant man with skin like charcoal, the local Kyotans grew so curious that they broke down the door of the Jesuit church just to get a look at him.
God, that's so interesting and also kind of weird. But like, because obviously much of history has pretty much been Eurocentric. If you live in, well, Europe and America, you're going to get a fairly Eurocentric telling. Because that's, one, if you live in Europe, got to learn that your history. If you live in America, you're a white settler colony of 3 different European nations. So technically like 4 and 5, because the Dutch had a colony and then the Swedish had a colony for a little bit. But mainly the big 3, Spain, England, and France. Those are the main. So like you're going to obviously learn that history. So that is going to lean Eurocentric. And I feel like with that, though, we kind of forget that Asia didn't have this. India had a connection with the east coast of Africa, but Japan didn't. But we kind of forget about that kind of context. And it's really cool that they point this out. Because, obviously Europeans, and then also by extension Americans, because of the slave trade, always had pretty constant contact with African peoples. So like seeing a black man or black woman, no big deal, right? You're kind of used to seeing that if you're going on a trade mission or whatever. It's obviously it would have been something out of the ordinary in the medieval times, but in this time period, not so much as out of the ordinary due to the slave trade. But yeah, for the Japanese people, yeah, it's interesting to hear. I think I explained that well enough.
Status as a local celebrity, for the common folk were astonished not only by his dark skin, but his size and height, as he stood a solid foot taller than the average Japanese man.
Was he over 6 feet?
The fame of this enigmatic foreigner eventually piqued the curiosity of Lord Nobunaga, who ordered the Jesuits to present the African to him. When they came face to face, Nobunaga was astonished. The warlord did not believe such a man could exist, and was convinced he was actually a Portuguese man who had his skin dyed with black ink. He had the African stripped from the waist up and be thoroughly scrubbed. This of course proved that his skin was naturally dark. Upon realizing this, Nobunaga took a genuine interest in the man, and it was at around then that he finally received his Japanese name, Yasuke. Yasuke soon became more than just a novelty to Lord Nobunaga. The daimyo came to appreciate the man's personal integrity and his physical prowess. He declared that Yasuke possessed the strength of 10 men. In the summer of 1581, Nobunaga's admiration of this strange foreigner had become undeniable, and thus he formally requested that Yasuke enter his service. It was official now. The man of humble Bantu origins was a samurai. Yasuke was afforded all the privileges any other samurai would receive. He was granted a piece of land and a household upon it, Japanese garments, and a ceremonial short katana. It can be assumed that he was taught the Bushido code and how to fight as a samurai. Yasuke became one of Nobunaga's favorite servants, and was one of the few people afforded the privilege of dining with the great daimyo. Yasuke soon joined his new lord in his mission to conquer all Japan. He likely saw combat at the Battle of Tenmokuzan, fighting fiercely alongside Nobunaga's forces to destroy the Takeda clan. It was the first time any Japanese warrior had encountered an African in combat, and the strength and ferocity of Nobunaga's newest soldier was a thing to behold. After the engagement, Yasuke rode at Nobunaga's side as the lord surveyed his newly conquered lands, and one can only imagine the wonder that many would have felt seeing such a giant of a foreigner riding in such a position of prestige at their liege lord's side. On their way back to Kyoto,
Well, I mean, if he's as, being a foot taller than the average Japanese man of the time, and then being naturally probably strong, if he is naturally strong, or well, also, and then plus having the Japanese training, samurai training, and you're a lord, why wouldn't you want him riding beside you? That's a pretty good choice for a bodyguard. He's bigger than everyone else, and he's well trained. I'm gonna pick him for my bodyguard Just saying.
He rubbed shoulders with many of Nobunaga's powerful allies, names we consider larger than life. One such man was Tokugawa Ieyasu, the man who, in time, would conquer all Japan.
Wow.
In June of 1582, Yasuke and Nobunaga arrived back in Kyoto. Nobunaga split his army and sent them forth to conquer the lands of the Mori, Uesugi and Hojo clans. He retired to the Buddhist temple of Honnoji, where he intended to rest. Surrounded only by artists, merchants, poets and servants, Nobunaga was largely unprotected. Yasuke, however, was by his side. Disaster was soon to come. An enemy host surrounded the temple. This was a complete shock, for none of Nobunaga's foes were supposed to know he was there. One of Nobunaga's most trusted generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, had betrayed him. He took advantage of his...
See, like I've said before, the Sengoku Jidai period is Japanese Game of Thrones. And I want a historical movie / series of shows set in that time period where we get all that betrayal and political intrigue. I'd love it.
Knowledge that Nobunaga was vulnerable and laid siege to the temple where his liege lord stayed. The treacherous Mitsuhide stormed the temple with overwhelming numbers. Yasuke charged out, mounting a desperate battle against the odds, with only a few bodyguards and servants fighting by his side. He fought bravely, but to no avail.
No.
Amidst the chaos and fire, Nobunaga had to commit seppuku, honorable suicide, so as to avoid capture. Somehow, Yasuke was able to escape Akechi's clutches. He found a horse and rode hard for Nijo Castle, where Nobunaga's son, Oda Nobutada, had mustered his forces. Where he had failed to protect his lord, Yasuke was now determined to protect his son. He arrived just in time, joining the young lord's army just as the traitor Mitsuhide attacked them. Yasuke fought hard in the battle that ensued, once more engaging Mitsuhide's samurai and slaying many in the defense of young Nobutada, but once again it was for naught. The Oda forces were routed, and Oda Nobutada was captured and forced to commit seppuku. Yasuke too was captured and presented before Mitsuhide. The traitorous general had nothing but contempt for the black man, declaring him to be non-human, little more than an animal. Because he was not Japanese, Mitsuhide declared that Yasuke was not to be killed and instead sent to the Christian church in Kyoto. And thus, after serving as a noble samurai for over a year, Yasuke was returned to his Jesuit masters. Reportedly, the Christians eagerly praised God when reunited with the man. It would be a nice thing to believe that Yasuke's tale had something of a happy ending. Unfortunately, we don't know. All records of his existence fade away after this point,
No.
and we do not know.
I thought he had died with Oda Nobunaga, or died with his son. Damn, that's not a happy ending. Being returned to your former slave masters.
Know what his ultimate fate was, whether he left Japan with the Jesuits or died on the islands. From humble beginnings on the east coast of Africa to the grandeur of the palaces of Kyoto, the rise of Yasuke from slave to samurai is a unique one, to say the least. He may not have been a samurai for long, and his influence upon the island nation may not have been as great as other foreigners who followed him, but his story serves as the inspiration for various pieces of media, such as anime like Afro Samurai and games like Nioh. Whether it be the man himself or what he represented, Yasuke enjoys a special place in the hearts of many Japanese people today, and is a wonderful story of what strange fates can be thrust upon the humblest of men.
That was a beautiful ending. That was... And it... as the final scene here. I want to know more about Yasuke. Dang. Not really a happy ending. Huh. I mean, obviously death isn't necessarily a happy ending either, but it's better than... I'd say death is probably better than being returned to your slave owner. But yeah. Gonna end it here. Great video by Kings and Generals. They're such great quality. I I haven't watched one of their videos, honestly, in a while. So this animation style kind of blew me away. I was really surprised. It was smooth, really well drawn, well animated, beautiful. Just beautiful. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to leave a suggestion down below for what you would like to see me react to next. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.